Welcome to the CBS Eye on Money podcast. It is Tuesday, June 29th, and today we are going to talk to one of you fabulous listeners, live on the air with us. We're going to be talking to George from Boston about his future retirement plans and his somewhat unconventional living arrangement. If you have a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Or if you're on our website, if you're on the jillonmoney.com website, all you need to do is click the contact button, ask your question, and tell us whether you will come on the air live or not. That would be so much fun. Mark will do the rest. Okay, we're going to talk to George right after this. George from Boston, welcome to the program. How can we help you out today?
I am a relatively young person. I'm 28 years old. My wife is actually just turning 28 as well. We both started our career in the nonprofit sector. We actually both changed jobs recently. She started working at a search firm, and I actually started working at a small consulting, Salesforce consulting company. So we have a couple goals. One of them is to buy a house in the not too distant future. We're also looking to have a baby in the next few years, but wanted to ask about saving for retirement and asset allocation. Since we both started new jobs, we have to go through all that and figure out what we want our asset allocation, and also whether to enroll in Roth 401ks or in traditional 401ks, and what might be best to do there.
Got it. So let me ask you a couple of questions. So you're both now, you have left nonprofit land. You're both now in for-profit land, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And my wife was actually on furlough for 6 months and then was laid off. So we had a little bit of a gap there, and I was luckily employed through that, but we did both change careers pretty close together within a couple months.
That's a lot to take in, though. I mean, like, to both start new jobs is tough. I'm so glad you both have jobs, so that's fantastic to hear. Has the shift in career meant a change in compensation? Are you making more, less, or the same than you were?
Yeah, we are luckily making more, given we were both in different size nonprofits, but we are making a good bit more than we were.
How much are you earning now, George?
Yeah, combined, we make $127,000.
And are you both eligible for 401ks through the new work?
We are. I have a 90-day waiting period, so we have a little bit of a gap there, but we are both eligible.
And 401ks, are they both 401k plans?
Yes, they are both 401ks.
And they both have Roth options?
They do, yeah. They both have Roth
Great.
options.
And matching as well, or not?
Mine has a match, a 5% match. My wife actually has some profit sharing, so it's a little bit new for us coming from the nonprofit sector.
So you're renting right now. How much do you pay in rent?
We have a little bit of a funny situation there. During the pandemic, we had an opportunity to move from our small one-bedroom into the house that my wife's grandparents used to live in, that her parents were renting. So we are basically paying, the property taxes, and we're paying about $900 a month, because of that situation. So
so far, I like that rent. Is this a house that you would like to buy from the family and live in, or not?
Yeah, initially we thought that might be the case, but the cost of living in the area that the house is, the value is probably too high for what we could afford. So we probably would look elsewhere. We're not quite sure how long we would be here, but we're kind of in a waiting period while this is an opportunity where we can pay pretty low rent, but it probably will get sold in a year or two, something like that.
Okay, because that's like such a great deal. What about, let's go into some of the other particulars. Do you have some debt that's left over, maybe school debt or other debt that's outstanding?
We are also very fortunate in that capacity. We neither of us have any debt coming in. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Love it. Fantastic. Okay. Now, in looking at the old retirement plans, what did you do with those? Did you leave them where they were? Did you roll them over? What happened?
My old retirement plan, which is traditional 401k, I did roll that over. It was with Fidelity, so I kept it in Fidelity. My wife's plan, she did not roll hers over yet, and I actually wish we would have rolled it over and maybe even converted to a Roth last year because our income was a lot lower with her being furloughed and then laid off. But we missed the boat on that. But it is not currently rolled over.
How much is in each of these accounts?
I have just about 85,000,
Mm-hmm.
and hers is about 28,000.
Do you guys have any other retirement accounts? Do you have Roth IRAs right now or not?
We did start those a couple years ago. Mine has about 24,000 and hers has about 15,000.
I know you're putting in $6,000 a year.
We just started a few years ago, but that is the plan to max out as early as we can with the full 6,000
Okay.
each.
Once you start contributing to your 401k, what is your goal in terms of how much you're going to put in there?
Given our situation this year where our expenses are pretty low and we both started new jobs, we are potentially planning on maxing out, maybe even both. I'm not sure how close we'll be able to get there, but given our expenses are pretty low and our only big savings goal is a house down payment that we actually already have about like $124,000 saved for a house down payment, we figured we might divert our energies into saving more for retirement this year, given our situation.
So you have 124,000 in the house down payment fund. Is that separate from your emergency reserve, or is that all sort of clustered in together?
It is separate. Our emergency fund is about 12,000. It actually is about 5 months of expenses right now because our expenses are so low at this time, but we might look at beefing that up a little bit.
How much must you spend on a home? Let's talk about that.
Both our jobs that we did start might have the potential for remote work. We're kind of wondering maybe a couple of years or even a year or two down the line, we might look a little outside of the Boston area, probably not going too far, but might help us be able to purchase a house by not
Maybe you get to go to New
staying too
Hampshire
close.
where there's no state income tax, right?
Yeah, that's something that's actually not that far away.
I know. It's like Southern New Hampshire. It's always so weird. I lived in New England for a while and I was like, what? There's, but, I know that the property taxes there are killer. So
Yeah.
sometimes you pay one way or the other. What are you thinking about in terms of the amount of money that you would spend on the house? So that house down payment fund, what does that represent? What's the house value that you think you could afford right now?
I think our down payment fund is pretty close to what we would need to cover the 20% down payment and any other costs that come with the closing process.
So like 550, 600,000 is like the amount that you would be spending?
That's part of the conflict. I personally feel like it'd be pretty nerve-wracking to buy a house that expensive, which that's kind of the reality of the area. But I would ideally like to pay closer to 400, 450
Okay.
max, but
Okay.
that would be hard to do in this area.
Would it be possible if you did move out a bit, if you did go to New Hampshire or somewhere else, I don't know, Southern Maine or wherever, like Western Mass? I don't know because the housing market's so weird, but is there a place where you think you could get what you would want?
Yeah, for sure. We're actually our one bedroom apartment that we used to live in was about like 700 square feet, and we actually really like tinier living environments. So I think we could definitely find something that we'd be really happy with a little further outside of Boston.
Fantastic. Goal one, buy a house. 4 to 450. You've got the down payment. That's fine. I mean, look, the only thing that I would say is, what do you think the house is worth that you're in? The family home right now. What's it worth?
Oh yeah, the area we're in is pretty close to Boston. It has a pretty good school district. I think it would probably sell for maybe over 800,000.
So who owns this house right now?
It's owned by my in-laws.
Do you have a good relationship with your in-laws?
Yeah, very good relationship.
Are they rich? Tell me the truth. I'm just saying this. I'm going to ask this bluntly. I'll tell you why. Because I have this idea that, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could buy this house and, I mean, you could have it, but they could hold some paper for you, that you could make it work, right? That they'll get their 800 grand eventually, but that, it would be so cool if you could just stay there, but maybe you don't want to stay there. So if they're really rich, there are some ways that you may be able to do this, but if they really need the money, then no.
I don't know exactly what the situation might be. My wife does have a brother, so I think that's part of the consideration. I'm not sure. My wife's parents, I think, they both retired recently, and I don't think they would need the money from this house, to be honest, but I think they do hope to kind of have that as be part of the assets that they pass down to both children. So not sure
It's going to
how that
happen.
might work.
All right. You're very political and astute in this, because I wanted, like, I'm the bull. I'm like running through and being like, how can we own this house? Because it is a big house, though. Obviously, it's bigger than what you're talking about. But on the other hand, you're there. And so it would be neat if there was some way that we could figure it out. I'm just going to put this thought bubble in the back of your heads. Okay. If parents who are just retired have a bunch of assets, one thing that your wife, and I wish you were on the line also, because I would say this to her, because you can't do it because you're the in-law and that's not a good conversation to have. But if you guys really did want to stay in the house and it's a year from now and they're putting it on the market, and you might say, if there's a way for us to buy this house and do this transaction now, of course, we understand that, like, you'd want the money, but we would be willing to sort of say that's the asset we inherit, and then brother can get some other asset. Do you know what I mean? Like, that there would be a way to equalize this if that was something you really wanted to do. I just think in many respects, the family home situation could provide you with a nice entry ramp into the housing market without making yourselves crazy and moving far away. But on the other hand, it has to be that, the parents would say, okay, George and your wife, whatever her name's, I'm going to call her Jenny, we totally want to make this happen. And we're going to talk to a financial planner or an estate planner to figure out how to make sure that everything's equal, because we don't want to screw your brother. So it's something to have in the back of your mind, because you're going to be there for a year, maybe two, but maybe that's something to keep in mind as a conversation starter, especially if you find yourself thwarted in your efforts of trying to find the right kind of place for you guys. All right. And so the answer to your question about Roth versus traditional, I know that you guys are making more money now, but you're in the 22% tax bracket. So I would actually use a Roth. I think that's a better option for you right now. So let's make your new plan. I think you should both be using Roths. Don't worry about converting or anything. You'll just use the new Roths going forward, and you're going to start piling up the money pretty quickly. So now let's talk about your asset allocation. What do you got? Where do you lean in terms of your risk tolerance?
We are pretty aggressive in terms of our allocation, especially in retirement accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Our house down payment is high interest savings account as well as bonds. A retirement savings is pretty much entirely in stocks, some total market index funds.
Roll the dice. Okay. I mean, you're in your 20s. I'm not going to tell you to go, you have all the other things, the things that are checked off. And so you rolled over into Fidelity. So you're using mostly the Fidelity index fund environment, right?
Yeah, that's right. I have a S&P 500 that I was thinking about changing to the total stock market. I'm sure it doesn't make too
Totally
much of a
doesn't matter,
difference.
but it's fine. Whatever you want to do. Total
Yeah.
total stock market's fine. What else you got?
I also have the Roth IRAs are both Vanguard in VTSAX, so total stock market funds as well.
What about in wife's old retirement account?
She was also with Fidelity for that.
Mhm.
She is in an S&P 500.
Are you only going to be using the US market? Can we put some international in there? Can we put some small cap in there? Is there, can I convince you to just, even in your stock habit, to like get a little bit more diversified? What do you think?
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask about. My wife actually has access to some pretty low cost, small, mid cap funds as well as international in her new Roth 401k. And that's something I wanted to ask about, diversifying a little bit in that way.
Yeah.
Don't really have any international funds.
Yeah, I would have, unless you want to do it in, you can just keep everything in the stock market index in your rollover if you want, but I would suggest that, you guys should have 10-15% international, maybe a smaller percentage of that, maybe like 5% in emerging market. What about a little small cap fund, which is something that I think is really important, an important component? I prefer small versus mid cap myself. If you have the option of maybe there could be a real estate fund or a commodity fund, a few percentage or, 3, 4, 5% in there. And, just to humor good old Aunt Jill, it wouldn't kill you to have just an extended bond index fund, just maybe 5 or 10%, just a little something in there. That's it. And then I think you're good to go. But I do think that rounding out your allocation, adding a few other asset classes in there would make sense. If you are looking at having a baby sooner rather than later, I think that for both of you, and I know that you have this 90-day wait period, so I really do want you to beef up your emergency reserve fund, especially considering that, number one, as you said, it's a little bit light right now. So during this period of time, do me a favor, beef that up so you have, more like 6 to 12 months and lean a little bit heavy on your emergency reserve fund if you are considering having a child in the next couple of years also. And what about estate planning? You guys have some wills?
We do not yet. My job, I just learned that they actually have a benefit where they will do some of that basic stuff. So that is on the top of my list as well as I start this new job. And
all right, the allocation you're going to do today. The will stuff, do that tomorrow, but sign up, and all you're going to do is have what's called a sweetheart will. It means that I leave everything to you, sweetheart, and you leave everything to me. And make sure that I'm sure this is already done, but your beneficiaries, you're each other, right? You're each other's beneficiaries. The reason why you want to just have the wills, might as well have the wills done now. Then when you have the baby, you can very quickly adjust. I think that you'll probably need to think about you probably don't need much life insurance right now, but when you have a baby, you're going to put that on your list also, like, oh, we should get some life insurance. Small little matter that you should understand is that it's very hard to get insured once you are pregnant. So if you're thinking about getting pregnant sort of anytime soon, you may want to get just a little baseline coverage for yourselves, even if it's like, let's just get $500,000 for 20-year term policy, because just in case, God forbid, there's some sort of complication in her pregnancy that would prevent her from getting covered. That's all.
Oh yeah, that's really good to know. I didn't know that.
George from Boston, go on. Let's, number one, change your allocation. Number two, tomorrow, the estate planning, the wills. Keep us apprised of what's happening. You must, because I'm now very intrigued as to what happens next. Are you going to go to New Hampshire? Will it be Western Mass? Who knows? Stay tuned. George from Boston will keep us posted. Hey, thanks so much for getting in touch with us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Jill and Mark. I really appreciate it.
If you'd like to come on the air with us live, all you need to do is send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com, or if you're on our website, jillonmoney.com, just hit the contact button. You can follow us here at Eye on Money on Apple or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And if you wouldn't mind, leave us a rating and review. We always like to tell you to do something nice for someone else today. Why? Because it makes that person feel good, but it also makes you feel really good. And isn't that great? Kind of a beautiful, mutual beneficial thing. Here at Eye on Money, we are practicing a mantra for 2021. Curiosity, compassion, community. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you on Thursday.